was switched off. You are all welcome today at the panel discussion event of the International Conference on Sustainable Built Environment. I would like to extend a warm welcome to the esteemed panel members and moderators, our respected faculty members, the guests, and everyone present today for this session, which will revolve around the theme Sustainability, Past, Present, and Future. Now I would like to call upon stage Professor Chani and Professor Mehta Mukherjee, who will be moderating today's session. Both Professor Chani and Professor Mehta Mukherjee are associate professors at the Department of Architecture in IIT Roorkee. Professor Chani specializes in energy efficiency in buildings, while Professor Mehta Mukherjee is proficient in the fields of building science, sustainable settlements, and urban climate. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite the panelists to the stage one by one. I would like to call our first panel member, Architect Deependra Prashad, to the stage. He is the principal architect of DPAP, a firm working on sustainable design and net zero projects, and is accredited by Terry Griha and BEE in the area of training in green buildings. Besides engaging in his architectural practice, he teaches at SBE Delhi and has been involved with training people at various government and non-governmental bodies including UN Habitat Terry, BEE, CSE, CPWD, HUDCO, HSMI, UNDP in the area of sustainable design and human city planning. He is also the founder member and coordinator of INTV AU, which works in the area of sustainable architecture and people-friendly urbanism. Our next panel member is architect P.R. Mehta, who established his firm Design Action Group in 1979 at Delhi. In the last 3 decades, DAG, at the invitation of their clients, has had a number of opportunities to conceptualize and realize built spaces for public and private use. Exhibition design in India and abroad has been very exclusive experience of DAG, which led to setting up a joint venture company, namely City Neon PhD India Private Limited, in 1996, in collaboration with City Neon International, Singapore. Next, I would like to call Dr. Satish Kumar to the stage. He is the Executive Chair of the Alliance for an Energy Efficiency Economy and the Senior Advisor to U.S. Department of Energy's Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Prior to this, he was the Vice President and Energy Efficiency Ambassador at Schneider Electric India Private Limited, where he held various leadership positions. He has served as the advisor to Niti Aayog, BEE, BIS, etc. He chairs DST's initiative to promote habitat energy efficiency. He also serves on DSTIU SSTL Bhavan Committee and advises DST on raising the profile of building energy efficiency research and enhancing the capacity of academic and R&D institutes in India. Now I would like to call upon stage architect SurinderBahga. He established Sakar Foundation in 1984 at Chandigarh. He has co-authored 3 books, namely Modern Architecture in India, Post-Independence Perspective, New Indian Homes, and Le Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret, Footprints on the Sands of Indian Architecture. Mr. Bahga was given Sir M. Vishveshwaraya Award in 1995 by HUDCO for energy efficient housing design. His Baptist Church at Chandigarh is selected by Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources and TERI as one of the best 41 energy efficient buildings in India. Last but not the least, I would like to invite upon stage architect and Professor Jaisim Krishnarao, a reckoned name in the field of architecture. He formed his firm Jaisim Fountainhead in 1970, drawing inspiration from the timeless novel The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Over the last 4.5 decades and more, Jaisim Fountainhead has designed spaces in every arena of human life, with several award-winning designs to his credit. Most recently, he was awarded the NDTV Award for Lifetime Achievement in April 2014. He is a strong flag bearer of sustainable built form and vernacular eco-friendly architecture. His work philosophy revolves around iconoclastic and individualistic creations where nature and design coexist to form a hallmark endeavor of his creativity. Now I would like to request Professor Rajshekhar and Professor Viswas to felicitate the panel members. Architect Deependra Prashad. Architect Satish Kumar. Architect SurinderBahga. Architect P.R. Mehta. And Architect Jaisim Krishnarao. Thank you everyone for joining us. With this note, I conclude the introductory session and would now like to request the moderators to commence and convene today's panel discussion session.
Thank you, Krishnarao. Very good morning. I hope after getting delayed by almost an hour or so, we can really spend time on this discussion, and already the esteemed panelists, they got their introduction. I think we can really keep on building on them. But today we will now focus on this particular topic, that is sustainability past and present. And this particular term, sustainability, whether yesterday also we have heard that sustainability, sustainable development, and sustainable built environment. These three keywords can depict our concerns in nutshell. But today we would like to really listen the different manifestations of this sustainability concept, how it evolved from past and present, and how it should get a good manifestation in future. That we would like to listen from our esteemed panelists. And in the beginning, I would like to invite the architect Deependra Prashad to tell us something on this. I think before that, Charu would like to say something on the modality, how we are going to have this.
Good morning. We will have 3 rounds. In the first round, each of the panelists will get around 4 minutes to give an opening statement with regard to the specific area they're talking about, which will be followed by another round where again we will focus on the points that they have talked about in the first round, and then we open the house to the audience. Finally, we'll conclude with the panel members again recapitulating the points they have mentioned and sum it up. We expect that they will do that in about 4 to 5 minutes each. So we would like to invite architect to start the leadership.
I don't think we need to go up.
No, it's okay.
Very good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's absolutely my pleasure to be here. I have been working primarily in Delhi, but a lot of our projects are outside. We've also delved a bit into this whole issue of sustainability, and of course, it's a very visible aspect being discussed in the built environment nowadays, especially because of the whole climate change debate with data such as that we are number two in the whole climate change stakes. Number one is transport. Transport, they say, is the biggest culprit at 45% of the global emissions, and we are supposed to be next, and maybe we're behind first if we go the way we are doing right now. So almost 35% to 40% is what is quoted as the contribution of buildings to global emissions. So I think sustainability is primarily the ability of the future generations have the same amount of resource. That's the broad definition that we talk about. And when we say we have to really conserve that resource, then how do we conserve it? And as jumping directly into the topic as built environment professionals, architects, planners, engineers, I think we do it in broadly two different ways. One is conservation, the other is efficiency. Now, efficiency, when we say building efficiency, energy efficiency, and there are a number of methods by which that is now being executed across the country in various ways, means electrical energy, air conditioning, and so on. But I would like to say that efficiency also has a double-edged sword. Sometimes efficiency also increases the quantum of the problem. So to give you a small example, if you have an efficient LED bulb lit up there, you might just leave it on, thinking that the overall energy consumption is quite less, and in the end, maybe the overall consumption will increase much more. So I think efficiency must be combined in a big way with conservation. I think, and conservation is, I think, the bigger word. I'd like to say that maybe conservation is the first principle of sustainability, and maybe efficiency comes first. And of course, it does, but I think it's still there. Both have to really work together. A lot of since I'm talking to architects and planners, I'm directly dovetailing into various topics. But some of our rating systems, which have now come into the market, also talk about efficiency. So I think conservation needs to be somehow maybe a bigger word, a bigger point to be talked about. So, since I'm really, talking more about the building segment as compared to the others, from the building, and I see that the person from BMTPC is actually missing, so I'll probably step into his shoes a bit, and I would probably talk a bit about materials. Now, when we talk about materials, then we begin to, and that's a huge area of work on its own. And, I'm aware that in this department there is a lot of work happening. So then we talk about embodied energy, which is the energy present in materials, and the other is operational energy. So one is, I think, one issue which I'd like to put forth is our ability. We've been actually singing songs to a lot of the alternative materials being discussed by various research institutions, even CBRI and various building centers all over the country have been talking about alternative materials. But the problem has been that they've remained alternative also. They haven't really been mainstreamed, and I think that's an important issue. How do you mainstream it with the large amounts of building which is going to happen in the near future? The other aspect is that we talk about low embodied energy materials, and then we say, well, a large number of current buildings now are actually operationally more consumptive. Meaning to say their operational energy is very high. They have air conditioning, they have very high energy, lighting, and so on. So with the push on efficiency again, some of the essential aspects of embodiment have remained silent. And that I thought one really needs emphasizing, especially with the kind of research also which is happening. I mean, it should happen that we talk about operational energy only, and then we forget about the embodied aspect. And then this embodied energy itself of materials increases, not just in these buildings, but also in our regular day-to-day buildings, schools, primary health centers, individual houses, which is what we are seeing across the country. So I think it's in a way dual action, and yeah, that's
After Deependra has very nicely started this sustainability and especially brought the focus back to union sector. And now we would like to listen from Architect Jaisim that how this sustainability is being practiced. Again, maybe probably in international arena as well as in India.
Good morning. Thank you. I thought I'd sustain myself by being the last. But I know what I haven't sustained myself. To me, ever since the word sustainability have been brought into the last maybe 1 decade more. The first time I ever heard of it was in a very recent novel, saying the argument to sustain. I initially understood it as something stopped. Then when I went home and asked my wife, why is the argument stopped? No, the argument is sustained. It's accepted. That is my ability to understand sustainability. Because if I look at my personal practice, almost 5 decades plus, I was looking at the initial process of an architect when you consciously design something and work. Because every architecture was not a conscious solution. Because you just not only have theory perspective, not the build along the years. It's a very strange phenomenon, but it's true. The other factor that happens is when somebody comes to you, they come to you because they're saying something, they observe something, they visualize something, they experience something. In the format, they think you can give them what we call much happier zone. In this professional thing, I just touch a few things earlier now. I used to practice in a very conscious way of, not because somebody forced me to do it, but somebody forced me to produce the materials. I believe it's our profession to make the maximum of it. Then one of these things that got sustained with me on this was one of the first meetings we had on acoustics with a few very senior architects in India, from Apollos and all this. This went on for 3 days with discussions on this. The only thing of the night, I didn't know all of them first. I said, so why are you talking all of this in a super 5-star hotel sitting on a beautiful seas? He all smiled and said, you must enjoy it. You also feel relaxed. It also adds value. If you're not in an environment that promotes your thinking causes, you must just sacrifice for no reason whatsoever. So that made me look at things in a little more positive way. So I met Agarwal of CSC. This is my environment. And I'm very long I think in Pune and not Pune. It was very powerful appreciation. Where I used to scribble all over my plate. That's what happened. And everybody was taking discipline and to write things on the page, neatly line. He came behind my table, like a thing behind right now, taking mine. So what are you writing? So it was what you're writing this one. The page got everything right. But here seems to be all chaos. Then what he in the end of the concluding session, he put is that you project his pictures. You have your own overhead projectors. He projected on my sheet and said, this is what Jaisim thinks. So when he projected it, the question is what was unconsciously in my mind was consciously there, because I said what. So in the chaos, there was great knowledge. What you think is not sustainable sometimes is not sustainable. So do not take away from the methodology of what you have been doing, the approach of what you've been doing creatively, just because somebody else disciplines you. And then closing down this exam, don't follow the West. They don't have anything about it. Zero. They made a mess of our lives. In their own action, they thought consciously they were doing it. But they got to all sorts of architecture which you still don't understand. Ours is a very eco-friendly, very sensitive, especially I listen to three youngsters reading their papers in the morning. How we are looking at our own lifestyles, our sustainable systems, our own relations, our own future, coming up in the future. Yes, technology does play a large part. Art has also played a large part. How do you use art and technology to give you what we call the future? So we're not talking about past, present, and future. It has to have a continuity. Yes, having messed up. But that particular time it was not a mess up. It was an opportunity. But no, unless it not go back, let me push further for the learning. I think India has a great future in this factor. Yes, from a small country, a very small population, 25 small population. So the lesser density of land, a lot more opportunities. I believe very strongly that the core number of architects that we are going to have, thanks to Mehta, also, will be greater competition, there will be greater awareness, and greater opportunity to create a better environment. We have seen some of the results that we are finally recognizing our own values, which is very strong. And now we are perhaps one of the few countries in the world where our climate and weather are so diverse. Even the nation of China doesn't have. So hasn't even monsoon, snows, the hot, humid, so it's absolutely the normal quality phase diverse action. It would great architectural environments. But we must go through the barriers of difficulties and approach these vectors in the future. I hope I've been able to add some value to this in some way. Thank you all.
Dr. Satish Kumar, to especially focus on energy and sustainability. That's the area that I'm most pleased to be working for decades now. And vast experience. So I really wanted to talk with a special focus on energy and sustainability.
Hello everybody, and first of all, it's a great pleasure to be back at my alma mater and speaking at this forum. So thanks to, I think, the Architecture and Planning Department for inviting me, and thank you everybody for being here. My word, although I'm an architect, I'm not like architect as Jaisim and Deependra. My focus, after I did my architecture, I went into more on the energy and environmental side and started to focus on the impact of the built environment and buildings on the larger kind of the planetary aspects and other things. So I think that has been kind of my focus. So some research that I have done and some of the policy work that we have
been trying to do in India. So I'm going to relate to those things in my opening remarks. So first of all, I would say that I agree that I think architecture and time, I think they are very creative fields, and we have tremendous opportunity to make a big difference because the thing that you are creating will live for 50, 100, 200, 300 years. I also feel that that makes us a profession which needs to be extremely responsible, I think, for the work that we are producing. And I think that's where I think there are lots of very good architectural examples, but there are lots of not so very good architectural examples. And unfortunately, I think we have to face the repercussions of some of the things that we are seeing, whether we call it like, whether we are copying West and we are building like class skyscrapers in climate that it should not be built, or I think the way I think we are, I think the whole approach that we are taking to architectural design and construction. So I would like to focus on two, three things. One is that although India has all these different kinds of climate, I think one of the biggest challenges that India is facing is how are we going to cool this country. And I think that's a very, very challenging topic, and it's something that has a lot of layers embedded in it. And the reason is that we can design for passive cooling. So I think that should be kind of, I think the debate talk about that conservation should be our approach. And I agree that should be our approach, but more and more what we are seeing that buildings are not getting designed for climate in a climate sensitive manner. And I think that's where I think how do you do it and how do you use the technology which allows you to do that is a real challenge. And the other big issue that is being faced and that is being discussed at the ministerial levels and others is that is air conditioning a right of just middle class and upper middle class and people who are rich? What about people who cannot afford air conditioning? What is the responsibility of the housing department, the architectural community, I think the urban development authority? How do we design that it's livable? I think there are a lot of surveys that are getting done. There are, of course, lots of policies in terms of how do you make more efficient air conditioners and other things. And it's spending, I think, 2, 3 months like in a frying temperature of like 45, 46 degrees Celsius is not easy, and if you're built environment that your home is not allowing you to do that. So that is one very massive problem that I see. It's a small thing in the larger context of sustainability, but how do we really do that is something that, so there is something that I just want to put on the table, what we call be lean, be mean, and be green, and it goes into this aspect that whatever we can do to cut down on the loads, so that the ideal scenario is that you don't need air conditioning. Can you actually do that? And I think we are a lot of people are architecture students. So one of the things that we really encourage, I think, when buildings are getting designed or this thing, is that how do we do it from a scientific first principles basis? And this is, of course, I think my work has been in this area. So a lot of people do this intuitively because I think they understand that how does this happen, and it can be linked to I think how you are also going to do it from a building science physics principle. And one thing that I just want to quickly touch upon is that we call this, I think we have, so if we are looking from a heat transfer principle and saying that okay, one of our main objectives is to provide a comfortable environment, which ideally should not have air conditioning, what are we going to do? And I go back to like radiation is a massive problem in India. How do we cut down on radiation? You build shades. How do you do that? I think you see a lot of the buildings are coming up, no shading, no regard for orientation, nothing. So that inevitably will lead to more active air conditioning. But integrating shading into an architectural facade will take attractive, takes time, takes I think convincing the clients and all these things is not easy, and that sort of a thing we face. If we are going to talk about say like okay, we don't want heat waves to come, we are talking about convection. So how do we actually address that? If we are talking about okay, if we want to don't let the heat come in, are we going to do some insulation? What are we going to do? These kind of things. So I'm just thinking that a lot of people say that, okay, shading, ventilating, insulating, and these are some of the basic things that can be done. And these are going right down to the things that we learn in the climatic courses and other kind of a thing, and the basis of like green building design or clean energy code and other things. So my pitch is that it's not one thing against the other. I mean, if we have an analytical bent of mind, if we are also creative, if we can see the linkages, I think that forms the foundation for any design that we are talking about in the built environment. So I think that's one topic that I wanted to discuss. And there is one more thing that I will talk about, and that is related to a slightly bigger thing, which is more related at an habitat level or at an urban level. Deependra, we talked about that building sector is becoming much more energy intensive. So when we start to talk about these things, and when we have all these technological means to cool and kind of like that, a lot of appliances and other things. So how do we keep our built environment sustainable? There are a lot of terms that are floating around. We don't have to get married with the term. I think there are zero carbon buildings or there are net zero energy buildings. But I think the fundamental principles remain the same, that when we are designing the building, how do we actually do it with the least amount of maybe embodied energy to begin with, how we can provide thermally comfortable environment. We are talking about a neighborhood. There are technological means where you can generate electricity with renewable means. Can we actually do that? Can we have like energy storage and these kind of things? Because we like it or not, I think these things are going to intersect at the profession, I think with the profession that we are in. And we just need to be prepared in terms of integrating and doing the analysis and trying to actually make it part of our architectural design process and vocabulary. So I think these are the two things just from this two like big topic of sustainable built environment that I want to put on the table, and then I'll come back with some other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think we are really getting lots of very good input into it, because the way Deependra started with a very general discussion on this sustainability and Indian perspective of it, and we get to know from Professor Jaisim that how design can really handle, and it has handled, it is handled through ages in Indian context, this comfort and people and their users, their behaviors and effects. And Satish brought a very right perspective that how at the modern time we are looking at towards the litigation. Though Satish has not really referred directly, but I think lots of simulations are also helping us in this litigation. And now we would like to come to Professor Mehta to know that how this education, this whatever we are discussing, because I think the future also is waiting for the future generation architects. So how do you think our education is performing right now, and how it can really get molded for future? That will be Sorry.
Thank you. Very interesting. Is that okay now? Yeah. When I look at the paper, it gives me to speak on a topic which is governance and education. And I am quite happy about it. For one thing that was very about governance and legislation is what we do here, and this is sustainability accepted for arguing sustain. So I think I also must make a mention. You see, the responsibility of the profession is very vital. Sometimes those who practice law, people say the responsibility given to them is not to actually think for their clients, but to aim for a just society. So that's the responsibility of legal profession.
And similarly, the responsibility of architectural profession is actually not to create buildings, but to build great communities where peace and prosperity will flourish. So I would actually aim for that as a layperson today. That what is it that makes sustainable architecture? It is actually the ethics, that how much you care for others actually will make sustainable architecture. And when I say how much you care for others, would include plant, animals, birds, fish, all together. When I look at trees, sometimes they stand in sun but provide you shade. They take away carbon dioxide and give you oxygen. You see, that's the concept of sustainability, that you start caring for others. And that would make the other person most happy to be your neighbor, to be your companion, or to be with you in the ecological system. And then, whatever little we may have, whether it is air conditioning or non-air conditioning building, but you will be happy. And that is what will sustain it, nothing else will sustain it. So that's the crux of the matter, that we have forgotten our responsibility towards others, and we are in a mess, and that is why the organizers are looking at me to suggest something on governance and legislation. When I don't do my responsibility, do not fulfill, discharge them in a manner that they would be liked by others, I am in a mess. So I would actually aim for a situation where they become ethical in whatever they will be doing, as Jaisim says, conscious approach, and that is what would give us sustainable architecture. It is my appreciation. This will make that material. It's what we are looking to do, projection of assessment in Rajasthan. What we learned that to try and shape your building by balcony or whatever. So those are matter of details, but first you must understand what is your larger responsibility. And then you can discharge your obligations in an appropriate manner. So bottom line for me is, sometimes what you think is not very important, but what is important is what others think. Thank you.
We've heard from all panel members till now about various issues that with sustainability at the center. We've heard about energy habitat, about conserving resources. We've heard about responsibilities as an architect, not, not just looking at the quantitative aspect of sustainability, but also what is my responsibility as an architect in terms of sustainability. Now we have Professor Bhagar with us, and though we would like to talk about climate and architecture, but we would also request you to especially focus on Chandigarh and tell us a little bit about these fields in Chandigarh.
I think when I was studying some religions, I took one subject in my school, that is religion. So I studied different religions and okay. uh, there are shlokas, there are verses in all the religions of the world. You know, Puranas, Sikhism, Gurbani, you know, and Quran. There are shlokas which are clearly guiding the mankind about sustainability, about saving the mother earth. Then, if you look at that story perspective of architecture, as Mr. Jaisim has highlighted, that India was very sensitive towards its sustainable environment. Uh, you look at the Mughal period, they have a very judicious use of water bodies, the projections and thick walls, and there were many water channels in the middle of the buildings to to cool them. And there are methods to conserve the water. All that was there inherent in India's ancient architecture. Then in the 50s, even when European came to India, he was very specific about designing buildings in New Delhi, which are climate responsive. You know, if you look at all the buildings in New Delhi, they are climate responsive. In the 50s, when Kabuzi came to India, you see his sketches, all the sketches which are published by the Cambridge University. Architect P.D. Sharma was sent to villages around Chandigarh to study how the climate of this place works and how it behaves. So they designed all Chandigarh buildings. You see, Kabuzi has used double roof on two buildings in Chandigarh. He introduced the terrace garden in Chandigarh. That was there. He introduced this combination of horizontal and vertical roofs, which we call Risole. And architect P.D. John's work was too good from climatic point of view. Even Jane Blue, the same Jane Blue has written a book called Tropical Architecture. She was praising the traditional thought, the Indian thought. She said it's the best thing which suits to the Indian conditions. So we were doing all this. And in the middle of 90s, a trend started. A trend started by some overzealous architects to plan the buildings all around the glass. And that was Gurgaon. And when Gurgaon happened, I got one cousin who is a scientist in US. He was hired by somebody to take samples of indoor air quality, to test the indoor air quality from one very famous building in Gurgaon. So the report came that all 5,000 people working in this building will die within 10 years. And we are giving huge, big awards to such people, who are doing triple damage to India's, heritage. And I think that is how the damage has started. And now, educational institutes are inviting such architects for very glamorous tours and all that. I think this trend has to be stopped. And coming back to Chandigarh, in Chandigarh we have Chandigarh is the only city probably in the country which has 50% green spaces. 50% green spaces. And Chandigarh, all the modern buildings in Chandigarh, I can very proudly claim that they are sustainable. All the work done by foreign architects, the Indian architects, that is very good. And even in recent times, there are problems like plastic is a huge nuisance in our urban coverage. Recently we have studied a technology which converts the plastic into fuel. I went to Chennai and we brought that technology to Chandigarh. And Chandigarh produces nearly 10 ton per day plastic waste. And we have a technology in India which converts plastic into oil, crude oil, without any environmental pollution. So, and now we were trying with the idea of converting the solid waste of Chandigarh into energy. And even in Punjab, we are playing very proactive. Recently, we have written a code, the Punjab Energy Conservation Building Code, and we are taking that code to even the remote areas. We got a huge grant from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency to educate architects, to educate engineers, and we are organizing training workshops in even remote areas, in smaller cities. This is how we are contributing.
Thank you, SurinderBahga. I think especially requested you to talk on this center because we are now discussing a lot of the smart cities. And ultimately, after a lot of confusion, it has reduced to the basic. So I think India is a very, very relevant benchmark for us to look for future, for that we will draw request to you. In the second round, I think, I don't know, I think we can really, I don't know what we are saying.
What I think is the concern the past members have raised. One thing that comes to my mind, you both talked about it, is that we criticize large buildings around these. We say they are unsustainable, they are not designed in example of people in mind, we just thought about a lot of regulations, but the problem still remains. And it's not going away. It's not an Indian problem, it's a global problem. Now, whether it is really a problem, then I'm using the word problem. Why is it that we are not able to find a solution? Is it because it makes a lot of business sense? It's a good corporate model. So I would like to open the discussion with this issue. Why is it that architects are not able to come up with sustainable buildings? We know there is a problem, but we are not able to find, we have not been able to find a good solution. Deependra talked about, we know alternate building materials are good, but the concern is we are not able to build them in the forefront. People are not using them. It's a conventional material always built away. So let's start with the thing again. Can you just tell us a little bit about these two issues, about the building problem and the material problem?
Good point, sir. So, I had one interesting experience actually. I was doing a training program for the CPWD, and a number of CPWD architects were there, and we were talking about green building, and we were also talking about this whole issue of glass and so on. And this lady architect, now she's a very senior architect in the body. She got up and said, "Well, it's fine for you to say." It's fine for you to say, but when we actually approach the client, and in their case, the clients are government bodies, government ministries, secretaries in the government, and directors in the government, and then they show buildings. They say, well, why can't we have the glass option? Why can't we have the Gurgaon option? And the broad point that she was actually communicating very effectively to me was that those are desirable and they make it special. So they give the Manhattan, American, North American looks, whatever, but they are really, we aspire to them. Now, we can keep on talking about more appropriate construction, but till the time the client's aspiration does not change, nothing will happen. So I think that is something, and that's a big task. That's a big task both in terms of training and professionals and also in terms of changing the aspirations of society. Being able to reach out and tell them that, well, I think our homegrown approach is more appropriate. Can we do that? Are we doing it? I don't think we're doing that. We are talking about it internally, but we're in a way preaching to the converted, as we say, but we're not really going out, to the field and really speaking that this is more appropriate. So I think that is something which needs to be done, and that's a huge task.
We talk about responsibility of architecture. It's not green buildings, but create communities that we should rather look forward for. Or we should devise. Sustainability is more of a concept of harmony and sharing. You talked about legislation is needed because we are not fulfilling our responsibility. We need legislation because I'm not willing to do what I'm supposed to do. So I need a legislation to control my behavior. But then again, the same issue, it is not related to it. Are we moving in the right direction? What are the legislations that we should have in place? Broadly speaking, that would be the
quickly, I have my own idea of how to let me first answer your question. It's what kind of policies which may lead to an approach which would give results which presentation dependent reality. Let me give an example of that. It is importance of snow. The snow is always there. What they have done, all the streets are east. So your forecourt or the rear court is either north or south. So what they specified is the dimension of the courtyard on the southern side, irrespective of whether it is falling in the main road side or with that, they have an urban scale where if you take the center of the road, the buildings are set back differently on either side of the road. But you have a courtyard which receives sun of some extent which somebody might have. So you have to think like that. You have a legislation where you don't have to be the architect, but you see the sustainable laws are only laws which are a policy of principle. When you try to detail it out, you are in a mess. You would only see malpractice that why I should not do it. This is my own space. Please let me do this, or I will do it this way. Only I will pay some penalty, or I will write what us up. Whatever opportunity I have. I will do it because I will have my thinking, my way. So, legislation, the first requirement is you only get malpractice. You cannot educate somebody by legislation. You see, so your prescription has to be so simple that it can be implemented, and then only if there is a malpractice it can be covered. But if you make a prescription so detailed that you have a door size, which will be this, you have the picture of the window, which will be this, because I think that this is the natural life you should have. You need to have whatever way he wants to do. Because if he cannot live in the room, and if he doesn't have intelligence, his architect is not intelligent enough to give him an aperture of a reasonable size when the sun is shining. Like that. So you need to get a knowledgeable person to help you, and minimum of legislation. So building bylaws have to be standardized. That is the first. Second thing, anything connected with energy efficiency, you put it in law, please move it. The more you make laws, more there are chances of those being not divided. You have to make people who have to be responsible for design conscious as justices. That is the bottom line. That in the classroom, you make them aware, like the talk about Prashad, economy, culture, all the subjects to be in the classroom so that when you give an output, it actually covers everything. So there everything needs to come in so that the mind which you are developing to become a responsible citizen first and then as a responsible architect, he understands the implication of every line. Legislation is the last thing you should have. If you do not understand, you think by devising or preparing high consultant on energy efficiency, all the buildings in the country would become energy efficient. It's a wrong notion. More and more the subject would be understood with more and more people, you are sure to get more and more results. You center it towards 5 consultants, 5 experts of the subject, they would have opportunity to give you lecture. This kind of products, but takes time. So let it become part of the system of the society. Education is one very fundamental part that goes in shaping up somebody's thinking, whether it is architecture or engineering or humanity. Shape them up there. Unless that happens, expect no results. No amount of legislation will give results. They keep on telling some that you can't do do's and don'ts and they funnel it. So, I like to think that the responsibility lies with the education think what is sustainable. Because you see, again, I repeat what I said earlier. It is your thinking is not important. It is what others. If I aspire to have a glass building and you say don't have glass building, your view doesn't matter. See, it is their view what would matter. So it is their view if you have to change it, if you have to make them think they have to become ethical, that the energy what we produce in this nation is to be shared by all. If that concept is understood, and there is a limitation in how much I can produce and how much I can. So whether I need to preserve energy what I have, or whether I have to minimize my requirement, I have to see that is there. You want to work along. And what you need is this book change in teachers, parents, students, they all have to be aware as to how they have to make this entire system sustainable, not their own building system. It would actually not help. You may get the 5-star certificate, 5 different tower, doing 5 platinum certified. That's what I want for it. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't help the sound. So, think of issues which are required to be policy, which are enabling to it, not restrictive in nature. And after giving political to get more conscious and not.
I would like to bring this Satish here because of what Mr. Mehta said. He said that it's very simple than very descriptive, but I think Satish might have an issue. So I want to ask him. Just he's been working with the energy conservation building code. He started around and that. So what do you have to say here? This is different.
I have mixed reactions to be very frank on this. I think I completely agree that the foundation has to be education. I think that I have absolutely no doubt, but is our education system doing it? That's the question. And I have really great doubts on that. That's my biggest thing in terms of how do we impart the kind of education which will produce, I think, the ethical professional who will have the conviction that yes, I have to produce this kind of a building. It's not a building, as I think Mehta is saying, that we have to think about others and we have to do this. So the reason I think there are so many things happening in this sector is because there is not one solution that can fix this problem. I mean, that is ultimately, I think, so government will try to do something, I think the professional community will try to do something, the consultants will try to do something, private sector companies will try to push their projects, whether it's materials, whether it's systems, and these are powerful forces. I mean, it's not. So my take is that I don't have a solution, and I don't prescribe a solution. I mean, my thing is that it's, and I am not happy with what is happening right now. How do you do things? I mean, I don't think that anybody of us has a solution who can say that okay, this is how it's going to work. We don't have a lot of time. I'm sorry. I think the kids here need to be really worried. I mean, because of the way I think the buildings are getting built and the amount of energy can if the buildings, I am a man of numbers, I'm going to say that. But I also understand the implication of that number. If we are having a 400 kilowatt hour per square meter per year kind of a building that is getting designed, we are all going to fry with climate change. There is no two ways around it. And 80 to 90% of the building, the way they are getting designed, is getting designed like that. Are we going to solve that with education? Is government just going to watch things that, okay, yes, this is how architects with a big capital A, I think are going to do things and we are going to sit back and do. So I'm sorry, I think I have a lot of concerns about the way I think the built environment and the buildings are getting designed. First thing I said that we go to the first principle. I think I heard Prashad talk about somebody is going to rise 10 years. I just want to know like who that kind, what kind of a report we are really looking at. I mean, who can say these kinds of things? Are we inhaling like some toxic chemicals or others? I mean, yes, there are building related illnesses, there are sick building syndromes, but these are not going to kill you in 10 years. Maybe I think it will take away 4 or 5 years of your life if you continue to work like that. But my question is that we need to question that wherever. I mean, if you don't have good data, if you don't have good evidence, how are you going to convince anybody? I mean, and I think that's why I keep coming back that yes, heuristics and this thing is fine, but develop evidence that yes, this kind of thing is working and everybody is going to listen. So policies need to be evidence-based. That's my thing. That yes, I mean, if it is working, what policies have worked? Has it worked? Has it not worked? We try to come out with shortcuts. I absolutely agree, but that's because people are saying that, oh, I think we have to do something. We have to do something. Let's get prescriptive. So I think that I think philosophy will not work. I do understand. ECBC, I worked on ECBC for 5 years, and ECBC has not been mandated in a single city, in a single urban and local bodies and other things. And people will say, yes, I mean, that's a proof that this thing, I think what Mr. Vinda is saying, that it is not going to work. And we are seeing that it is not working. I mean, it is never worked. Huh? You see, let me interrupt you and say something. The life expectancy, what was there 50 years ago, which was the average at less than 60, has moved at least 10 years more in this country. And the only reason for that is the advancement of medical science. And that has not happened by legislation, it has happened by the research and continuous effort made by medical colleges and through the practice of those who have been developed and evolved out of the advancement of medical sciences. So the responsibility, if you want to bring any kind of a change and a sustainable change, which will continuously work in any direction, which will not solve problem of one generation which lives now, but for the generations to come. The educational system and the societal learning is the only sustainable system.
I think, though I agree with many parts of what you were saying, but medical science is also fully regulated by lots of legislation.
No, it is the drug which is regulated. It is not the practice of medicine. It is not that what I would diagnose after clinically examining you. That is not regulated. It is left to the doctor to understand. And his understanding is based on what has been his education and how continuously he is educating himself. It is not restricted. My age is not becoming greater or my life expectancy is not becoming more because of this. The drug controller is there. The drug controller deals with again malpractice that you would not have solved, which would have adverse effect on my life. Yet they are controlled. The consumption of medicine has increased 1,000-fold since independence. But the malpractice is covered on that, not on what I practice, not on the practice of the profession.
I will only suggest that you can talk also about the performance-oriented targets.
Yeah, so I think I'll take 2 minutes. I think my sense is that, see, I think our lives are changing. We have about 7 million people here. So the things that used to work and the buildings and the planning that used to work 30 years ago, they have stopped working. So now the challenge is that is it going to be through the professional credibility? Is it going to be through the policies? Is it going to be through education? How? Maybe I think it will require everything. I mean, that's the only thing that any question I'm not comfortable with. I think the technology is evolving. We can say that, okay, technology needs to be used, I think, in a very careful way. I will buy that, yes. I think we need to use science, I think, in a very careful way. We need to, I think, apply our minds, have critical thinking, question, I think, because some of the basic things remain the same. You are only thinking of like other mediums to do that. And the other thing, I mean, I will say that the guidance that needs to be provided through the designer community, I think, is also that, okay, if you say that, don't tell me that what should be the conduction or the radiation, how do I minimize that? Okay, that's fine. But what about doing that your building needs to have this kind of performance overall? And I think there are tools available. You can design any kind of building, doesn't impinge upon, I think, your creativity and other things. But at the same time, you have a bigger responsibility. That's the first thing that I said. Because if you leave, I think, a lot of these things on this, and that you have complete control and you can't do anything, then you can come up with, I think, real things. So I think you don't depend upon the professional creativity, the professional this thing, but then if you are having some environmental impact because of the product that you are doing, the health example that you give is very, very interesting. But the health example, there is an immediate feedback that the patient is going to give to the doctor. If the doctor is not going to do the work, he is not going to complete. So I think that kind of, but in building there is not that kind of immediate feedback that comes. I think we are talking about 30, 40 years, what we produce, I think it's going to be there. So there needs to be some way of like, how do you make buildings, design buildings, and then kind of like evaluate its performance and the overall impact on the planet.
Architecture, you heard about education versus legislation. We all agree education is the best way forward. Education is the best way forward, but legislation is there. The other thing that I feel is somehow is it true that architects don't write mathematics in one? That is the reason why.
Very interesting. I mean, any legislation in the built environment changes. In fact, you made a very fascinating example about building east west development. You know something? In the latest built environment conference once a week, as a part of learning about so the future of the building is not going to be east-west orientation, but north-west, not south-west. Why? We are talking about glass. Glass is one of the most misunderstood materials of plastic. Today, we're already experimenting in glass, not only an experiment, it's a very but glass creates energy and cools the inside and keeps it off. Which means I am not anymore dependent on the utility power factor for creating my own energy. Every second building will be self-sustained in energy. And this is where the big thing comes. This is where the government doesn't like it. The movement of government or for sustainable or sustainability space becomes self-dependent, self-independent. The government loses power. The politicians lose power. That's again the need of education to come. They don't want it to come. I'm looking for a country. I'm not an Indian. I'm an Indian. I opened the service in the speaker meeting together. So I'm not an Indian. Today we are past the ballot that we are no longer citizens of a country. We are citizens of the human being. This is very important to understand. Then the next factor that goes with some of the points, people talk about higher education. I'll tell you, it is not the kind of the method of understanding education is becoming very helpful. I don't know why. Although I love my single malt from my mutton, I become very friends with all the sergeants and bullies. I'm literally good for every one of them. But not one of them understands architecture. If they don't understand the built environment architecture, how are they great gurus is what I feel. But they have to be fair because there are a million people running behind them all the time. I walk in, he says, oh, this is the fun. He says, sir, I'm going to the bar. Which bar? I said, to my bar. They are learning. The point is, we are getting enshrined in fear. Fear is becoming a big factor on it. Is it because of the living conditions? Is it because of the comfort? Or is it because of the guilt sense? I don't know. This is got into a bit environment. Other day I was looking at some buildings. The structural engineer can grow a building into 10 times more structural strength. But when the architect asks for 1 square foot extra space, no, so he cannot exceed 1 square foot space. But I can put 10 times of steel. Nobody else. Again, I'm coming with new things. One of the big problems of education in architecture has been, which was touched in the first round, integrating all the maybe the 19 or 20 disciplines that you have done. You take most of the buildings, especially nowadays. They build everywhere. Because of PWD code or whatever code. Then the air conditioning walks in. I don't understand the stupid air conditioning sitting here. The heaters work. They're inductive air conditioning. They're not good for health. They're very bad. So what happens? Who's done it? And he cannot do it because it's not functional. We are here to say the architect has not understood. I agree with this because they are not conscious. I'll be honest. They just take something from somewhere and build it. It looks pretty. Looking pretty is not architecture. Looking beautiful is not architecture. Aesthetics is something else. Aesthetics is in the soul and the spirit of the spaces that we create. But unfortunately, what happens is when you go, why don't if you ask me a very good question, taking this, why are architects not involved or something in any built environment? Architects per se, if you take them as a value, are not built in the built environment because the builders don't want you. They don't sell. They are selling like a solution. It's a product, beauty, design, cost. You can't. Because building one room over the other is all identical and then selling it off. Doesn't make sense to me, but it sells. Because they know the marketing part. Today, we have gone from the built marketing side, where the builder, the bigger is, the greater marketer gets lost. They are just calling for lunches and dinners and movements and dinners and say, thank you very much, sir, if you back home. That's what I think. I know we are able to get it. In fact, I wrote an article a couple of years ago saying, good architecture in the Jurassic Park. It will be a reunion. No, I'm serious. I agree with them on that new age allocation. We have gone through this course. Can you rise up above this noise? I am a Christian, every aspect. Don't accept anybody, I will build all the education, not rules and things. Movements, the school puts rules. But I know a particular school saying, only graphic should be done by pencil and release copy. I was shocked. And then I went to another field only graphic by machines. Multi. I said, they said, what do you do? I said, I don't know that. And what do you do? I said, I don't know, somehow it gets good.